American half pound of 2 pure beef patties, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. I'm Adrienne Meddock.
And I'm Steve McGowan. We are in a band, The Beef People. We released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records. And we are record collectors and passionate especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast.
And this is Singles Going Steady
094.
094. Mm-hmm. Ooh.
And we're going to talk today about one of the preeminent American punk bands from Los Angeles, X. And we will talk about their single from 1980 on Slash Records, White Girl is the name of the single, and the B-side is Your Phone's Off the Hook, But You're Not.
So, why, this was your selection for a great single?
Yes.
Why did you select it?
I like the song. I believe that we need to talk about X because I think they're
let's talk about X.
A very influential band.
Yeah, and X has got to be on one of your best of lists when you're looking at this era in particular.
We were often, the Beef People were often compared to X because they have a girl singer and a boy singer like we did, although we were really nothing like X at all. Right. You know, X is one of those bands. They came up from LA. They were They came up with bands like the Germs and the Alley Cats and the first wave of punk,
sort of like pre-surf hardcore.
Yeah,
I mean,
pre-hardcore, pre-Black Flag, all those kind of bands. They were a little older and a little more artistic. The music was more about the personal, the art. It wasn't quite so cookie cutter punk. The guitar player Billy Zoom was a rockabilly player. From what I understand, he played in a very, very last version of Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps for a short while.
Yeah, so that's
I mean,
you don't get it more
back to
genuine than that.
Yes, right, exactly. And they had a very unique sound because Exene is not a particularly great singer. She's got a very interesting style.
Right, but not a classic crooning girl.
Yeah, it works wonderfully in this band. Her and John, Exene Cervenka is the female singer. John Doe is the bass player and the male singer. And their voices work together. They were famously a couple for a long time. And they produced a number of great singles and a couple of. They were around for a long time.
Right. And they're still playing. Yeah. They were apart for a while and they're back together and touring.
And the records we're really going to talk about is the first one, which is called Los Angeles, and the second one is called Wild Gift. And again, reaching back a little bit, they were produced by Ray Manzarek from The Doors.
Right.
I mean, he was really thought that what they were doing was something else. So...
It wasn't The Doors.
No, it sure wasn't. It wasn't very psychedelic. It was punk rock, you know.
Yeah. So this was a big deal in 1978, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And Slash Records was a LA-based independent. They put out a lot of interesting bands, Los Lobos, other things like that. They were big for a little while, and this is a single that was released in 1980. And let's listen to it.
Okay, let's listen to it.
It's called White Girl. It's X on Slash Records 1980. So that was White Girl, and it doesn't really have a racist overtone or anything. It's about, from what we can ascertain, John said he wrote it about Lorna Doone from the Germs, who was like 19, he had a crush on her, and she's a white girl, but I'm living with a white girl.
Right. He's standing next to me singing.
Right, yeah. So you need to watch what you're doing there, John. That's the gist of the song, but it definitely has kind of a rockabilly riff to it.
Yeah.
The kind of classic sound to it. It's slow. It's not, million miles an hour punk.
So it's personal, and
Yes.
it's got
Very
that hard punk edge to it
Yes.
as well. But it's not it's not ripping off the Brits form of punk.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like the Pistols or anything like
the
that,
Damned or anything,
or even the Ramones.
Right.
Ripping
off. It's not ripping off American punk.
It's that particular West Coast thing that they developed. Kind of in their own petri dish.
It's exactly. I think it's sort of in its own silo.
Mm-hmm. Right. So John's got a great voice, and Exene is great on this one as well. And Billy Zoom is obviously the star instrumentalist. There's a movie, a documentary they made called The Unheard Music, and there's footage of them playing this song in the studio, I believe recording this version of it. And it's pretty impressive. It sounds really good, and I think you can see it on YouTube, and I'll be talking more about the documentary later. But they could do it. They could definitely put together a good song. And the B-side of this single is excellent.
And it's really more what you think of when you think of X.
Right. And it's called Your Phone's Off the Hook, But You're Not. And it was actually the first track on Los Angeles. So, that's pretty strong for a B-side of a single. For some reason, White Girl wasn't re-released until the second album, Wild Gift. And I don't know what was going on with that, but maybe they ran out of material.
Problems at home probably caused the release on the single. I don't know.
Yeah, they were probably fighting about that. So let's listen to the B-side. Your Phone's Off the Hook, But You're Not. This is X from 1980 on Slash Records. So to me, that has more of the classic sort of X sound with that sort of pseudo rockabilly riff to it, but it's revved up. It's definitely, we're up at punk speed, and you had spoken about it before. It's personal. They talk about the personal politics of relationships, the two of them. Your phone's off the hook, but you're not. And then that's interesting because they were in an age where there were no cell phones.
Right.
And some of our listeners probably can't imagine that, but there was a time when you had you only had a landline phone, if you were lucky, in your apartment or wherever you lived, and if you took it off the hook, no one could call you. They'd just get a busy signal.
Right. And what are they up to?
Yeah.
Right?
So something's up.
Right.
If I keep calling and it's busy, so your phone's off the hook, but you're not.
Right. It used to be that you could call the phone company and ask if it was actually engaged. Right. Is it busy? Is there conversation on the line?
And they would tell you.
They wouldn't tell you. Oh yeah, they're talking about you and what a jerk you are and how she's leaving you. But,
right.
But yeah, they could tell you whether it was. They could tell you if there was a malfunction in the line. Right. Is it busy because
a truck ran into the pole?
Right. Exactly.
So this is a little bit of old people talk that some of you kids might not remember.
The phone.
Yes. We certainly remember that time very well. It's a great song. It deserved to be the first song on Los Angeles. I've always admired X for kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
I was never a huge fan of X, but they've always had some songs that are just really, really good. I mean, Johnny Hit and Run Pauline is one.
But they're standalone. They are standalone in some way. They've got that recipe, that unusual. It's the kind of he was iconoclastic for the time because this is really before sort of the rockabilly revival. Particularly on the West Coast, where Billy Zoom was an unusual looking figure at the time.
Right, exactly.
Right, and so they took all those components, that these personal lyrics, personal songs, the little bit of this rockabilly inflected guitar,
revved up punk,
and
rockabilly,
and the two vocalists, and it was something very different.
Yes, I agree. They would go on. They released a number of records. They were one of the first so-called punk bands to play at Farm Aid. And the people in X would morph into the band called the Knitters, which was really one of the first Americana bands.
Right, and that was a takeoff on the name The Weavers, which of course were Pete Seeger's group in the 50s, a folk revival group.
Exactly. So I was able to do sound for the Knitters in South Carolina, and met Exene and met John Doe and DJ, and Dave Alvin was playing guitar. He borrowed my amp, which was fun. Turned it all the way up. But they were just the nicest folks. They played great. They sounded great. Really interesting to talk to. Not jaded like you would think they would have been, 20, 30 years on. And then I did sound for John Doe a couple of times, and he is just the most positive guy.
That's great.
He's still putting out great records, and talking with them, he's like, well, we're all still here. Isn't this great? That was one of the things he said.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Didn't he have a little career like acting for a while too?
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember any of the movies, but
and he's had written.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The book that he has written is called Under the Big Black Sun, and it's kind of an oral history of that time coming up in L.A.
Late mid 70s, late 70s, that nascent time of the American punk movement.
And it's he and a bunch of the other bands are they all contribute. Like the Go-Go's have a section. Somebody from the Go-Go's writes something, and he writes something, and you can tell it was a very interesting, very artistic. These people were doing their own thing. X was doing the rockabilly thing, and the Go-Go's were making dresses out of trash bags, and everybody had their thing going on, and it was it was very interesting.
Yeah, the self-expression was the raison d'etre, right? And it was the center upon which they all revolved.
So, great book. And I think there's a new one as well. I don't have the
we'll post
title,
the link for you.
Yeah, I'll post. I think he's got a second book that covers a lot of the same things, and I definitely want to check that one out for sure. So we love X. I especially love X. I think they're a very impressive band. You can learn a lot from. This is a great single. Can you hear anybody covering this song?
I was thinking maybe the Beef People.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
If people were going to draw those parallels,
right. Why
got the boy and the girl can sing
it.
and right, wallow in it and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, I think we could probably work that up pretty easily. I was thinking of a pairing of the Hold Steady with Chrissie Hynde.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So we get
that's cross-generational collaboration.
Could be very interesting. Do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation, because I was thinking about Los Angeles and sort of pop culture commentary, and I was thinking about there's a particular mix, and I've got a little bit of a hangover from thinking about sci-fi in a recent podcast where we were talking about Funkadelic. So combining sci-fi and Los Angeles and pop culture commentary, I was thinking about mid-century architecture that was inspired by space travel, sort of like Sputnik era.
Right.
It's known as Googie architecture. Googie, and my name always for that style was Jetson style architecture.
Yes,
maybe you can picture that a little bit better. But a lot of things that incorporated stylized stars, planets, space travel, and so. Look for the local Googie inspired architecture, that space age travel, Sputnik era style of design.
Yes, okay. And I'm sure there's a ton of that in Los Angeles.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more than wherever the listener is.
Right. My recommendation this week is for the X documentary. It's quite a few years old now. It's called The Unheard Music. It's a very well put together documentary. It's kind of fun and funny, even though it deals with a lot of serious subjects. It shows the band playing live, shows them in the studio, them talking about their careers. Some bad things happened to them. Exine's sister was killed in a car crash on the way to an X gig. And, it's really well put together. It's very interesting. It holds your attention. It's not just a live thing. It's a history of the band, and you can learn a lot from it. It's called The Unheard Music, and I'm sure you can stream it wherever. So that's my recommendation. And this has been Singles Going Steady, number 094, the punk band from Los Angeles, X, and their single White Girl. And your phone's off the hook, but you're not. And we will talk to you again very soon.
Yes, very soon.
Bye.
Bye.
To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.
I was crying in the middle of the night.